Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of HerVersion. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. If you are new to this podcast, make sure you follow, like, subscribe, and share. Let's jump right in. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for this episode of HerVersion. The HerVersion platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I am speaking with an amazing woman named Lauren. Lauren is a recovering workaholic, perfectionist, imposter, people pleaser, and apologizer, and I can relate to a lot of those. She is here to shed some light on finding time to do the things you enjoy without sacrificing your professional life. She believes that we can be a proactive change maker and find balance at the same time. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be with you today.
Yes. How are you? How was your weekend?
Good. Everything is great. We had some beautiful sunny weather here. And so I got to stand outside and just put my face to the sky and everything is well. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that.
Thanks.
Nice to know that it's nice up there because I'm down in Florida and it's gorgeous.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to make everyone on my Snapchat super jealous. Just every day, I'm just like, look at how beautiful it is in Florida.
Well, it's not gorgeous. It's 41 degrees, but it's sunny and crisp. And that's good enough for me.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, listen, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to sit down and hang out with me and share some of your nuggets of information with the HerVersion audience here. I totally appreciate that. I would love to just kind of open up the floor to you and have you explain this overachiever attitude you had. Were you born with that mindset, or was that something that was kind of instilled in you, and kind of go from there?
Sounds great. Thank you so much. Was I born with it? I think I was regular as a kid in terms of schoolwork. I was a fine student. My parents had very high expectations of my performance, and that was important in my household to do well and work hard. I think, though, what really shifted for me and made me this workaholic overachiever, which if you had told me 2 or 3 years ago I was an overachiever, I would have thought, you're crazy. I don't do enough. And so recognizing the overachieving was part of my path here. So it actually, I think, began when I got sick in my late 20s. I had been sick in my early 20s. I have hypothyroid, and it was discovered in my early 20s, but I waited a very long time to go to the doctor because I'm a tough woman cut from tough cloth, and I thought it was me. I thought I wasn't doing enough and exercising enough, and so I kept going. When I was diagnosed with a thyroid condition, it took almost a year to get me on the right medication, because with a slow thyroid, they have to work you up to the right level of medication so they don't shock your system. And I was so sick. Wow. Because I had just dismissed the symptoms as I'm not doing enough for my body. And that really helped develop my relationship to my body, which has sort of continued through adulthood. And after about a year, that was taken care of. I was working a regular job. I was working, sort of the 9 to 5, and was promoted within my company to a bigger job. I was tapped on the shoulder to move into human resources. And that was about 20 years ago now. And I took that opportunity to show my stuff. Like, finally, it had been discovered that I have this talent. I'd bounced around to a couple of different jobs, and I was going to show them my stuff. And then I had a grand mal seizure. Out of nowhere, 29 years old. I'm 45 now. 29 years old. I had a grand mal seizure, and nobody could figure out why.
Wait,
And
when, where? Like at home or like in the hallway at work? Like
in Atlantic City, of all places. So our office took a day out, like an administrative office day out. We took a bus up to Atlantic City together. A few other girls in the office and I got massages. We had lunch. We went to sit at the slot machines. And then I woke up and I was on the floor being slapped on the face by a paramedic who said, "You've had a seizure." To which I replied, "No, I definitely have not. I don't have seizures." And she said, "Why are you lying on the floor of this casino?" So clearly something had happened.
Wow.
They took me to the hospital. They couldn't figure out why I had this seizure. My heart was racing, which I guess is something that happens after a grand mal seizure, for hours. So they finally let me go once my heart rate went down, and somebody stayed behind. I actually worked for a rental car company at that time, so they were able to pick up a rental car from one of the offices in New Jersey and drive me back down to Maryland. And then I went to a neurologist who immediately put me on very heavy doses of anti-seizure medicine, which was not the right answer for me.
Wow.
I didn't have a seizure disorder. I had one random seizure. What happened after that, though, was that my body started attacking itself. And many years later, I went to the Mayo Clinic after seeing about 20 different doctors, and every doctor saying, "I don't know what's wrong with you, but I think you should see this kind of doctor. I don't know what's wrong with you, but I think you should see this kind of doctor."
Wow.
And as well, along the way, as I think many women do, a lot of doctors who said, "Oh, honey, there's nothing wrong with you. You're in your 30s. People get tired in their 30s." And so there was a lot of work to not be dismissed for being sick and to try to figure out what had happened.
Yeah.
So now here I am in parallel, around 30 years old, getting sicker all the time, trying to prove myself as an HR professional. Yeah. And that's where the hyperactive work came into play. So as I'm in my 30s, going to all of these doctors, trying to figure out what's wrong with me, fighting what's wrong with me, instead of, sitting down and allowing myself to rest, I'm also proving myself and trying to grow inside of the company I'm working for.
Got it.
And so I was working all the extra hours, doing all of the extra work, mentoring other employees, and I did grow. I got promoted to 2 different offices in the company that I worked for, and eventually left that company for a bigger job in another company. And there I went with my backpack full of 60-hour work weeks and took that with me to the new job. And while I was in the new job, I had the opportunity to go to the Mayo Clinic. And what they surmised was that they didn't know exactly what had happened. But what they theorized was that my brain, I had a virus that attacked my brain, and my brain's reaction was to overprotect my body. So not only was I an overachiever, but so was my brain. And it shut down my respiratory system, my endocrine system, my gynecological system, all of my systems started being attacked. And I ended up on 23 pills a day, an inhaler, and a nasal spray, which I still take to this day to look this good and feel this good.
Wow.
And nobody has ever figured out what happened. The end result was this collection of symptoms that could be treated in all different kinds of ways. My brain, the thought part of my brain, said, "You have to work even harder than everybody else because you're an adult sick person. And nobody's going to want to work with you if you're a sick person.
Got it.
Don't tell them you're a sick person.
Yeah.
Don't show it. And work doubly hard so that not only don't they think you're sick, but also they think you're amazing. Wow. And you're limitless and your work is endless." And it made me really successful, which is great.
Yeah.
It also was really tiring.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I left that second job about 6-7 years ago, I moved into a nonprofit, into a vice president of HR and operations job. And that was the dream. I got to create an HR department from scratch. I got to really impact the whole organization. I took on roles interim, managing different departments along the way. And it was the first job I was in where my health issues had been addressed.
Okay.
So I was still working on some of the issues, especially the muscular issues. Part of the shutdown of my body was that my muscular system just like wasn't working right. And I was in physical therapy for about 2 years when I came back from the Mayo Clinic. And so I came into this new job, which was the last job in a corporate office that I had, with this mentality of things are fixed. I have fixed things.
Yeah.
I have handled the health issues. I worked crazy hours at the last place. I'll do it for a short time here to get set up, but then I'm coasting, right? I'll stay here for a year and then I'll get an easy job somewhere. And what I learned is that, and I can't remember who said this quote, but I use it all the time. Wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah.
So I had built up this workaholic way of being, and pretty typically was working 60 hours a week. And now I was in this new position where I got to run the job however I wanted. And I wanted it to be perfect. And I wanted to prove my worth and show everybody that it was worth waiting for me to show up and come and fix things and make things work well. And I moved from 60-hour work weeks to 80 to 100-hour work weeks.
Oh my gosh.
And I moved from I can do this vice president job to I can do all the jobs.
Wow.
And I became a chronic hand raiser. I'll do it. I'll take it. I'll help. I'll be in the project. I'll lead it. I'll manage those people. No problem. And because some of these health issues had been handled, I was like, oh, you've got lost time to make up for. So it's all this pressure I just keep piling on myself. Nobody was asking me to do all of this extra stuff.
Yeah.
But I felt like I needed to, because I still felt like I needed to prove myself.
Wow.
And I was really proud of the work that I was doing.
While you're doing this, not to interrupt, but
Yeah.
while you're doing this, is there, now looking back, is there anyone that was kind of like, Lauren, what are you doing? Did anyone say that? Or was everyone just like kind of taking advantage of the situation?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
So there were people in my life, in my family, my friends, who said, like, does everybody in your office work like that? That just seems like so much, you know? And there were people in my office who would say, you know, not that I don't want you in the room on this project, but like, what does this have to do with you? Why did you raise your hand for this? Why did they ask you to be in here? And I didn't hear it, though.
Wow. Okay.
Because what I heard in my head was, you've proven yourself at this level. Now take on more, because now they're just going to take for granted that you do this level of work. So you've got to keep building and keep reproving that you're worth their time and money.
Yeah.
And so I had taken on the interim vice president of marketing and communications right before our big conference, when we had a fairly empty department, and working the craziest hours I had ever worked. Hired the replacement vice president, because that was part of my actual job, and had just gotten all the extra work off of my plate. And in my mind, I had this moment where I thought, now things can change. Now I can start working fewer hours. I can start setting boundaries and limits. I had no idea how to, but I thought I could.
Okay. And
soon after that, I was working from home one day on a snowy Monday, and I had just cleared my whole house. I had just done one of those like huge reorganizations where even the baseboards were clean and every pair of underwear was folded in the exact right direction and in the right color order. You know, just you look around the apartment and everything is just where it should be.
Yeah.
And the last thing I was doing was running my Roomba vacuum around the living room.
Uh-huh.
And I was sitting on the couch with my laptop on my lap doing my work. And I saw the Roomba heading for a lamp cord that was unplugged. And the lamp was glass and was sitting by the door waiting to go to Goodwill. And I thought, oh no, the Roomba's going to hit the lamp. The lamp's going to shatter everywhere. So I jumped off the couch, ran to catch the Roomba, slipped on the wood floor in my socks, launched forward, reached out in front of me to try to grab the dining room table that I wasn't close enough to, and landed with my arms above my head, like Superman. And I broke both of my shoulders.
Oh my gosh.
And I scooted on my butt over to, I was able to get up to a sitting position. I don't remember exactly how. I think I just was in shock. Scooted over to the couch where my phone was able to, it was on a sheet that I had on the couch for my dog to be sitting on. Inched the phone off towards me and called my friend and neighbor who lives in the building. And I said,
just like this, like
just like this, because I couldn't lift my arms.
Yeah.
They were on fire. So my elbows and my hands and my wrists were all fine, thankfully. And so I called her. I said, you know, I hurt my arms. I fell. Can you come down? I'm not sure what's going on. She came down. We ended up calling for an ambulance. And the physician's assistant, who was very young and very surprised to see me calm, because this is always how I am, asked me what I thought happened. And I said, I feel like the insides of my arms have torn. And she said, well, that's really unusual. And let's take an x-ray. And she came back with this face. Jaw dropped. And she said, you broke both of your shoulders.
Oh my gosh.
And so here I am, chronic hand raiser, who literally cannot raise my hand. Which was pointed out to me by lots of people, probably all of the people who had been saying for years, why are you raising your hand for that? You're doing Yeah. So my office was super kind about the whole situation. I was out for almost 4 months before I was back full time.
Gosh.
And
so what do you do when you break your shoulder? How do you do anything?
You don't. You live in rehab centers. I couldn't even take the glasses off of my face because I couldn't reach my chin, right? If you have your shoulders down and you're just moving your elbows, you can't even reach your face.
What about brushing your teeth?
Yeah. All the things you're going to ask, what about? I couldn't do. I couldn't put my own pants on. I couldn't go to the bathroom by myself. I couldn't brush my teeth. I couldn't eat. I couldn't take my glasses off. I held my phone in my hand 24 hours a day because I could use my hands. I just couldn't reach for my phone. So my phone was my lifeline. My family, my friends, you know, all the time. Fortunately, it was the year before the pandemic, so people were able to visit me. But I spent nearly 3 months in hospital and rehab centers.
Wow. Yeah. Incredibly insane.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah.
And then here you are.
Right. Here I am. My arms work now, thankfully. And it turns out I did tear the inside of one of my arms that the physician's assistant said was so unusual. I did tear some muscle. But so I went back to work, and I was so grateful that they'd been so kind to me. And I went right back to all of my habits.
Wow.
And for me, the thing that actually was the coin flip or the light switch flip, or, you know, there's sort of a moment, I think, in everybody's lives, if they're going to have a change that they choose it. And for me, it was when the pandemic came. I was already covering the VP of finance job at my company and looking to hire the new VP of finance. I was already covering a From the Studs construction project of our new office space during a pandemic where the permit offices were closed and the supplies weren't coming in because everything was shut down. And everybody turned to me and said, Lauren, there's a pandemic. What do we do? And there was a great executive team to work with, and we all worked together. But when it came to writing the messaging and the laws and all of that and the regulations, it all did come to me. And I thought, this can't be the rest of my life. I can't just keep working like this and taking on all the projects and doing all of the things and not having any time or space for anything else. And then I didn't know how to change. And so I just sort of sat with that for a couple of months, working now at home because of the pandemic. From the moment I woke up, 7 a.m. came around, the alarm went off, the phone went in front of my face to check the emails that I could get rid of quickly. Mm-hmm. A whole day was spent rearranging the day because I was called into so many different meetings. And then I would start doing work at 5 or 6 at night when all the meetings were over.
Wow. Yeah.
And I met some amazing people during the pandemic because I reached out for networking. I got active on LinkedIn. I found a couple of HR groups on Facebook, and I met some people who did what I do for a living, or what I did at the time for a living. And when your peers who've been in similar positions to you say what you're doing is insane, you've got to stop.
Yeah.
You start to hear it. And when you're living it every day and you realize that you had this opportunity of 4 months of broken arm time to really think about how you want your life to be and how you want it to change, and then you go back to the same thing, the messages kept coming to tell me to do it differently.
Yeah.
And I just didn't.
Wow.
And then once I realized I did, I started thinking about what kind of help I could get and what kind of help I'd be willing to accept. Because you can imagine somebody who worked the kind of hours I worked and took on the kind of jobs I took on was a do-it-yourselfer.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Wow. Incredible. So you had an epiphany.
Mm-hmm.
Decided to pivot. What did that look like? For people who are like sitting right now and they're like, okay, I get it. I'm in your boat, Lauren. I'm here right now. As an overachiever, as a person who's always trying to like impress, and like, how do you inform people, your boss, your company? There's so much on your shoulders that you're changing everything. What do you do?
Yeah. It's not fast.
Okay.
It's based in choice. I didn't make any powerful choices. I was making choices all the time. I was making choices to please people. I was making choices to contribute to everyone else but me. I was making choices to make an impact on the company I was serving and on the clients I had on the side, by the way, who I was serving very well. But I wasn't making the choice for me, and I didn't know how to. And so the first thing for me was realizing that I couldn't do it all by myself, and that I didn't have to, and that I shouldn't. I know we don't like to use the word should and shouldn't, but there are people and resources, and there's this whole world out there that if you're willing to ask for and accept help in, it's there for you.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to say, I can't do everything by myself.
Yeah.
And being able to take care of yourself and look at yourself is very difficult, because you cannot get an objective point of view from you. You can't.
Yes.
You have this whole set of expectations. You have this whole history with yourself, right? I had created this world in which my body was broken.
Okay.
And my brain worked well.
Yeah.
So because my body was broken, I would use my brain more.
Got it.
And by using my brain more, I would work more.
Okay.
Right. And so that was my worldview. That was my context. Those were the glasses I looked through at the world.
Yeah.
Like, I have something to make up for because my body doesn't work the way it should. And So for me, I was looking at what other jobs I might take, right? Because that was the only thing I knew how to look for.
Yeah.
Oh, I just need another job that's fewer hours.
Okay.
And what I realized in talking to some friends who were in HR, some friends who were coaches, was I just couldn't see any other way. And so I needed an outside person, totally objective, who didn't live inside my life and wasn't a family member or a friend or a colleague who also had a view and a context of who I was and who I am. And by accident, I kept coming across people who were full-time coaches. I kept coming across people who had made shifts in their lives. And I just kept thinking, like, how'd you do it? You know, what's the formula? And eventually ended up speaking to a coach who I had known from a former job. She was in another job. I was in another job. And realized during my conversation with her that I wasn't actually having a conversation with her to find out how to get into coaching as a full-time job instead of just the side gig I had kept for a bunch of years. But what I really needed from her was for her to be my coach.
Yes, I love that.
And so I started working with her. And the first thing I said to her was, the only thing that's not going to change is that I work 80 to 100 hours a week. And that was because I didn't see any other way.
Okay.
So she said, okay, because a good coach is going to meet you where you are.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah. And then I very quickly realized I actually don't want to be working 80 to 100 hours a week. I don't even want to be working 60 hours a week, let alone 80 to 100. And I just don't know how to get out of it. And because I don't know how, I thought that was a have to.
Okay.
And so a lot of the work with my coach was untangling all of these rules I'd created for myself about how life is, how life has to be, what my role is at work and in the world. And I think that as women, you know, my story is maybe a little unique. I mean, I don't know anybody else who's fallen chasing a vacuum and broken both of their shoulders, but the concept of my story is not unique.
Yeah.
We learn from our parents, our siblings, our friends, our coworkers, society, that as women, we're supposed to do it all, have it all, be it all, and make it look easy.
Yeah. And that's the question that I want to ask, you know, as we're going along and we're talking about this, you know, where do you think females get this mindset of thinking that they're constantly having to do more? Where does that come from?
I think we're just all trying to keep up with each other, with men, with, if you want to do everything, if you want to be a successful working person, you have to make it look like nothing around you is hard. Because as soon as something hard comes into the picture, your illness, your children, your spouse, your parents that you're taking care of, whatever the situation is, right? We all have different stuff. Men often, and I don't want to generalize and say every man out there, but men often are not asked to play a role in their families of primary responsibility.
Yeah.
And women are.
Yeah.
And then we assume it, even if we're not directly asked, we assume it because it's what we see other women doing.
Yeah.
And so we want to make it easy on our employers and not have them have a reason to not promote us or to, you know, not give us the challenging work. So we just continue to prove ourselves. For me, it was illness and injury. For other people, it's children and family and other obligations. But if we can make it look easy for our employers, then we're promotable.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Now, I never have treated my employees that way over the years, right? So there are tons of professionals out there, men, women, and non-binary people who don't have those expectations, but we've put them on ourselves because it's the way the world has been.
Yeah.
And you're seeing it more now. You're seeing more flexibility now in the workplace because the tides have turned and it's a candidates market. It's a job seekers market. And companies will have to adapt, but there just is this long-standing, if you are a woman, make your woman stuff look easy so that we're all the same at work. Otherwise, you're a problem, you're trouble, you're
a burden.
A burden. You're going to miss work. You're going to, oh, you might have a kid. I don't want to give you this project that's going to be 2 years long, because what if you have a kid in that time period? You just got married, and all of these assumptions that build up, and that we also build for ourselves, because it's what we learned as we were coming through the ranks.
Yeah, for sure. When you're looking back at, that pivot that you made, from one extreme to an entirely different lifestyle, what do you think were the 3 steps? Like, I'd like to be able to allow people to say, step 1, step 2, step 3.
Yeah.
When you're talking your mindset, not necessarily your life, but your actual mindset and pivoting how you thought about things. I know you said you got a coach. What were, some of the other things that you did to kind of help, change your mind?
Yeah.
How you're viewing that?
Getting a coach, and, that as part of the package of realizing that I wasn't going to do it all by myself.
Yeah.
That was the huge step 1, is that not only can I not do it by myself, but I don't have to.
Yes.
There is a ton of opportunity out there to ask for and accept help.
Yeah.
Which is very hard for an achiever.
Yeah. Yes.
It's very hard for a perfectionist. It's very hard for a person who doesn't set boundaries well.
Yep.
To say, I'm going to spend time on me, focusing on me, and getting help with me.
Yep.
And so that was the first step. The second step was in working with my coach, realizing I didn't want things to be the way they were. When I started working with her, I wanted things to be exactly the way they were, but better. Right? Because my mindset was in concrete, so fixed on, well, I already work 80 to 100 hours a week. I can't untangle from that. That's the me. Who am I without work? Right. And so realizing that I didn't actually want to be this person and this way.
Yeah.
And that I had a choice in deciding who I wanted to be when I grew up, whenever that day may come. And then the third step was doing really small things to make those changes. And the very first thing that I did, which now it makes me laugh because I've created so much more flexibility in my life. But the very first thing that I did was a 15-minute daily assignment. That for the first 15 minutes, when my alarm went off, I would turn off my alarm and I would not look at my phone.
Okay.
And I put a book in my hands instead of a phone.
Okay.
And 15 minutes later, nothing had exploded.
Work
was fine. The world was fine. There was nothing terrible going on. And I recently said to somebody, what I realized was I wanted more, less.
More, less. Wait, explain that.
I was doing more all the time. I would get up, immediately work. If I took a break in the middle of the day, it was to read quickly because my book club was coming up, or it was to have lunch with somebody and run back because I needed to get stuff done, right? Busy, busy, busy. And what that 15 minutes in the morning gave me was less. There was no running around. There was no immediately turning my brain on to do and be there and be at and in work. And it made me crave more space in my life. And that after that 15-minute daily exercise, after a week, just 1 week, I said to my coach, I need more of that. I need more space in my life. I can't even figure out what I want to be when I grow up because all I do is work. I don't want to work all the time.
Yes.
And we kept setting small steps that worked for me, that I created, that gave me more space. I started saying no to projects at work. I started not raising my hand. I gave myself a challenge to write down everything I was doing as I was doing it. That wasn't actually my job. I filled up a page in half a day.
Wow.
And I stopped raising my hand deliberately. I still was saying yes to most of the stuff I was asked to do.
Okay.
But as time went on and I realized not raising my hand was not detrimental to my career and was opening space on my work calendar, I had a conversation with my boss. Heart pounding, telling him, I'm going to stop raising my hand. I'm doing too much. I can't continue at this pace. It's not sustainable. I'd like to just be an HR professional. And he said, congratulations. I was going to let you work as much as you wanted to work. You're contributing all over the place. It's great for the organization. You're not up for it anymore. Congratulations. Just
wow. What a great boss.
He's a great boss. Such a great boss.
You don't see that.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
High five.
And even that was an adjustment, right? There was like something came up the next week. I didn't raise my hand. The call was over and there was a new project formed without me. And he called me and he said, did I push you out? Did I offend you? I feel like you might have gotten slighted in this project. And I said, no, this is what it looks like when I don't raise my hand. He said, oh, I get it now.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, it kind of gives me the chills just thinking about that adjustment and the almost awkward silence that was there, but like not there. Like people might not have noticed, but it was there for you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. While you're talking, I'm relating a lot. I work for myself though.
Mm-hmm.
What is your opinion on the difference between who you were at that point, you know, workaholic, people pleaser, always doing all of the things, and what I would describe myself as is just a hustler. Like I just freaking love working. You know, you're saying like, you know, you work and then when you have time off, you're still finding reasons to work. And then first thing in the, but I enjoy it. Is there something that I'm missing? Is what you're talking about available to every person? Or do you think that there's some breeds of people that are just more so just like that run? Or am I running from something? Am I like fearful of something? What do you think? What do you think? Like I'm thinking to myself, like, I wonder if this is something that I'm dealing with and I am camouflaging it as something else.
I'll say it depends, right? Because not a therapist, just a coach.
Yeah, just your opinion. I'm just asking your opinion.
There was a long time in my career where I loved the hustle. And I still love being able to look back on my HR career and point to all of the things I did and achieved and the impact that I made on individual people, on the company. And now that I run my own business, while I work fewer hours, I freaking love work. I love it.
Yes.
And I could spend all day doing it.
Yeah.
The important piece for me is choice. It's choice. If you're choosing your work, and you're choosing when you see friends or when you spend time with family or whether you have a dog or a cat or a fish, if you feel like you're living in choice, it's really powerful. Beautiful. Where I had gotten to was that I no longer felt like I was choosing this. I went through this trajectory up where I felt like I was choosing to work. I was choosing to raise my hand. I was choosing to make more impact and do more work and have clients on the side. It all felt like choice until it hit this tipping point where I didn't feel like I could make plans with people because I didn't know when I'd get off work. I didn't feel like I could say no if somebody asked me to do something because of course I would do it. I did all the things. I didn't feel like I could just not raise my hand and not be thought of or called lazy. So it's the control and the
Wow.
choice.
Okay.
Now, if I get up in the morning and I have commitments to other people, I always uphold those. But if I have the choice of I can sit and work on design all day and spend 2 hours on LinkedIn engaging with people, or I can sit and read a book, I probably will choose the work because I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
But I have the choice.
Beautiful.
And it was the loss of the feeling of choice. And I say feeling because that's an important piece. I always had choice.
Okay.
I never took it.
Got it.
I always made the choice that I thought was going to serve other people.
Beautiful.
And now I make the choice that's going to serve me so that I can best serve other people.
Beautiful. I so understand that. And I can relate to both. So I think I'm doing pretty good.
Good.
So,
you look happy.
Yeah. So to kind of explain for those who are on both sides here. So yes, I do sometimes feel as if I can't make plans for the weekend because I'm worried that like something and I hesitate to make plans too far ahead because I'm worried about that. However, I have been working on that, but definitively, yes, I have had and do still have that hesitation of like not wanting to. One. So that's a negative. However, my positive to go along with everything you just taught us is one of the things that I insisted on when I started working for myself is I wanted to have the ability to be able to wake up without an alarm clock. And I can definitively say that like 85% of the time, besides when I have a client early in the morning, I do not have an alarm. Just whenever my eyes open, and that's like my one thing. You know, like some people like yoga, some people like, you know, reading, whatever. Like my one thing that I was really excited about was not having an alarm. Now that doesn't mean that I sleep until 10. That just means that whenever my body is done sleeping, it wakes up. And it feels so good to be at a point now where that is something that I have in my life that is a choice that I made. And that is now, you know, impacting my life in a positive way for me.
Yeah. So powerful.
Yes. I so appreciate you breaking that down for us and for me.
Yeah.
And I can totally relate to that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hey, I want to ask, as far as, you know, the journey that you've been on, I'm sure you've read a ton of different books, and I love hearing recommendations. Do you have any recommendations of books that you've kind of fallen on over the years that you could give to us?
Yeah. There are 3 books that come to mind. One is The Gifts of Imperfection, which is a Brene Brown book. It's one of her earlier books, and she just re-released it with some extra workbook kinds of things. And I can live in that book.
Really?
For those who may not know, Brene Brown talks about vulnerability and shame. And she speaks directly to perfectionists, directly to workaholics, directly to people pleasers and apologizers, and people who can't set boundaries. She's been there. And The Gifts of Imperfection walks you through all of the different types of ways that we try to be people pleasers, that we try to make things exactly perfect, and walks you through different ways to think about those aspects and questions to ask yourself and journaling to do and reflecting to do. And it's just such a great opportunity to recognize yourself in a way that you wouldn't if you were just walking through life.
Got it.
So that's one. I also love Jenny Lawson. I don't know if you know her. She writes blogs actually and has turned some of them into books. And she has had depression and anxiety her whole life and is absolutely hilarious about it. and also heart-wrenching. So one of her books, Furiously Happy, is one of my absolute favorite reads. It's just so real and raw. And it's like you're sitting in the room with her, hearing her tell her story.
Wow.
And even if you haven't dealt with severe anxiety or depression, you get it. You get her because she talks about real life.
Wow.
And then the third book that really was life-changing for me was Shonda Rhimes wrote a book called The Year of Yes, where she's an introvert, and as am I, although I don't come across as one. She's an introvert, and she's, if you don't know, the creator of Grey's Anatomy and other Scandal, and
yes, her name is on all of those. Thank you for saying that, because I did not.
Shondaland is her company.
Absolutely.
And she wrote this book called The Year of Yes, and if you get to listen to it on audiobook, it's even better.
Okay.
And she decided that for the entire year she would say yes to everything she was invited to, because her natural instinct was to say no. Her way of being was, I don't want to do that. I want to stay at home.
Okay.
And she decided to have a year where she said yes to everything she was invited to. She went to the Kennedy Center Honors. She went to all the award shows. She had lunches and dinners and meetings with all kinds of people who she normally would have said no to.
Okay.
And her lesson, not to give away the ending here, but her lesson was that she gets to choose, that she doesn't have to default to no. Okay. She doesn't have to push herself to yes, that she gets to choose. And for me, I read it in 2019 when I was recovering from my broken arms, broken shoulders. And it was so impactful for me to hear her say, as this very famous, very successful, very hardworking single parent, that she's choosing, she's making choices, and she's changing her own life and her own ways. Absolutely. And it stuck with me. And when I hired my own coach and started to make my own changes, it always stuck with me that I have a choice, that I can say yes, that I don't have to just protect. I can explore and try things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So good. I didn't know she had a book. I'm so glad you said that.
Yes.
I'm so glad you said that. I'll totally look that up on audio. I love audiobooks.
Yeah.
The best. Well, thank you for that. What do you think are some of the biggest lessons that people can learn from your life?
I know I keep saying this, but my biggest lesson has been choice. Absolutely. We get to choose not just what we're doing, but we also get to choose how we're being. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is I did all the things. I scrambled and I hustled and I worked really hard and I did all of the things, and I forgot about joy for a while because I was so busy doing all the things, right? And you get the busy face on and the busy movements, and you just are getting through so much. And we all have this opportunity to decide how we want to be. Yeah. And the example that I give, because for me, being was like a really sort of woo-woo foreign concept, is a great example is if you and I both walk into our kitchens in the morning, and let's say you love to cook and I don't, and we both open our refrigerators and we both see that all we have are eggs. You're going to say, I have eggs. Oh, so great. I can cook breakfast. I'm going to say, all I have is eggs. Now I have to cook breakfast. And it's two different ways of being about the same situation. Absolutely. And so if you choose to go through life being burdened, being an apologizer, being a people pleaser, and choosing your work from that angle, instead of choosing your work and your life through the angle that you just talked about, which is I love my work. I love the hustle. I get so excited about the things that I do. The being is at the core of all of it. And that's where coaching, I think, is really important, because you can't see for yourself who and how you're being. Absolutely. And it's really hard to see who you could be without somebody else's perspective. and without being asked the right questions and without reflecting in new ways and noticing your life in new ways. And then from there, it comes down to choice. We have choices, even when our lives are really hard, even when we have a lot of responsibilities, even when we have commitments that we've made that we're not willing to break. We can choose 15 minutes in the morning to read. We can choose 5 minutes in the middle of the day to just breathe. Taking 5 minutes to breathe is absolutely life-changing.
Yeah.
And we always have choices. And we can make powerful choices. We can make not powerful choices. And we can make no choice, which is actually a choice not to make a choice. Right? So it's all choice-based and it's all opportunity.
Yep. I want to ask you a question. I early on towards the beginning of the podcast, you had mentioned, I apologize if I'm quoting this wrong, but you had mentioned something like, it's really difficult for me to have an objective point of view on my own life. You said something like that. For those that are listening right now live, and for those that will be listening on the replay, this platform attracts a lot of individuals, females, who are just now kind of like getting into personal development. They know nothing. Can you I meant to ask you it right away and I forgot, but can you kind of just explain what that means? Objective, subjective, your viewpoint on that?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Yeah. So I'll use me as an example because I know me best.
Thanks.
When I worked all of those hours and when I took on all those projects and raised my hand 100 times and said, I'll do it, I was being a certain way. And objectively speaking, if you looked at me from the outside, I worked more hours than other people. I took on more jobs than other people. Like, those are some facts, right? What I couldn't see were my own biases that were leading me to do that. And that's where the subjectivity comes into play, where I thought my body is broken, so I have to work harder than other people. That's an internal bias. That is subjective. Nobody told me your body doesn't work right, so you have to work harder than other people.
Yeah.
Nobody told me if you set boundaries, people will still respect you. Nobody told me people like you for just who you are, not because of the hours of output you bring in.
Yeah.
And because I had these internal biases of who and how I was, I am a person who works hard. I'm a person who works all the time. Work is my life. Work is what I know how to do. And it's what I know I'm good at. There is nothing else out there for me but work. I couldn't see any other way.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's really any such thing as objective when it comes to human beings and human behavior. And what I knew was that the people who love me and the people who care about me want something for me.
Yeah.
Right? They want me to work less, or they want me to date someone, or they want me to have more time in my life for activities. So they care too much to be any kind of objective.
Got it.
So where a coach or a mentor or a training program or a book can come in is that they can ask you the questions that you're not asking yourself, that you're not able to see for yourself.
Yeah.
And they can ask you what you know about yourself and what you don't know about yourself and what the possibilities are for your future. And coaches are not invested in what your decision is. If you decide you do want to work all the time, great. Let's make that powerful for you. If you decide you don't want to work all the time, great. Let's make some decisions that are going to empower you to do that. And so with a coach, you get that outsider view, which I call objectivity. Maybe it's still not, right? They're still caring, compassion. But you get that outsider view and you get those questions and the opportunity to sit with yourself and really figure out who and how you want to be and have the lens that you look at life through reflected back at you. Yeah. Oh, I hear you saying that it's this way. You're stating that as a truth. Is that a truth? Right. And just having those kinds of questions come at you. Yeah. Oh, where else does this? It seems you have a lot of rules around this area of your life. Where else do rules come up in your life?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you think of work-life balance, what's your opinion on work-life balance? The cliche.
Yeah.
I love asking this question because there's
Yeah.
so many different, some people think it's just a load of shit. What's your opinion though? What do you think?
Yeah, my opinion is it's not a thing. There is no balance. There's integration.
Integration. Okay.
There is an opportunity to decide how you want to live your whole life. Work Sabrina is not different than home Sabrina. When in my previous life, in my busiest times, I was work Lauren and home Lauren and daughter Lauren and friend Lauren, and I was totally not integrated, and I kept every focus sort of separate and compartmentalized. And the truth is that as much as I worked to do that, it's all one. The same Lauren shows up everywhere in life.
Okay.
And so finding balance is really about finding joy and making choices and deciding this is when I want to be working. This is when I want to be doing a hobby or spending time with my partner or my children or my parents or whatever it is. And being able to say, I'm putting work away for now. Right? Because if you always have work on your mind, which is the thing that trips a lot of us up. Some of us always have family on our minds, and we go to work and all we're thinking about is family. Where I see the sort of unhealthy balance is the inability to be present in whatever you're in. So if you work all the time and then you go out to dinner with friends and all you're thinking about is work, you're not really out to dinner with friends. You're out to dinner with work.
Got it. If
you're at work and all you can think about is your family stuff that you have to do at the end of the day, you got to run to this store and you got to run to that store and then you got to make dinner and then you got to do this. And if that's all on your mind all day long at work, you're not really at work.
Yeah.
So it's integrating your life as one big thing and then deciding that the thing that you're in is going to be the thing that you're in. And if you can't be in it, then making the choice to say, I can't come to work today. I'm taking a sick day.
Yeah.
And not over explaining, well, it's not that I'm actually sick, but I need the time. Your time is your time.
Yeah.
If you need help with your family so that you can concentrate on work, then it's making that statement and asking for help and saying, I need help with the family stuff because I have to be able to focus on work.
Yeah.
So it's being willing to integrate all of the stuff and being able to figure out ways to be present in each thing so that you're not just focused on one thing while you're at another.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
I so appreciate you being here. Such great information. If anyone listening is interested in learning more about you or working with you, can you give us an overview of what you do, who you are?
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. I am a leadership coach. I work with corporate people. I mostly work with the people who serve the people at work. And that's the executive suite, CEOs, COOs, CFOs, vice presidents. I also work with HR and operations and with really leadership managers, directors who serve the people who serve the public, right? So it's the people behind the scenes at work, in the back office of work, who are spending so much time and energy making sure that all of their staff and all of their people can serve the end user, the product, the service, whatever it is. And I work with them to decide who and how they want to be when they grow up. And help them figure out what they want to focus on in their career and what they want to focus on in their lives. And for some of my clients, they come in saying, I've got to change jobs. That's the problem, which was also what was in my head at one time.
Yeah.
And realizing that it's not the job. It's how they set boundaries. It's how they say yes or say no or approach their career or approach their promotability in their office. And sometimes they stay with their company and sometimes they change companies, but it's so much less about the job than it is about how they approach their lives.
Beautiful.
And I help them decide to make choices that are going to serve them and that are going to make them happier as a career person, as a family member, as a friend, as a partner, as a parent, in the way that will serve them best.
That's great. And then is your coaching done in person or do you do virtual? How do you kind of do that?
I exclusively do virtual.
Okay.
And so most of my clients are actually not local.
Okay.
They're all over the US. I don't have international clients, but I'm willing to work internationally. And everything is over Zoom. So it's really easy to just take that hour to sit with me, to sit with yourself, really, and give yourself the time and energy that you deserve.
Absolutely. So if somebody was interested in learning more information, can they just go to your...
Yes, they can go to my website, Lauren Lefkowitz Coach. I know I never know where to point on the video, but yes, they can go to my website, laurenlefkowitzcoach.com.
Okay.
I'm also really active on LinkedIn, Lauren Lefkowitz. If you look for my name, there are a couple of us, but there aren't many, and I'm easily recognizable.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's awesome. And then as far as male and female, are you one or the other, both? How do you do that?
I work with any and all genders.
Yes. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I have one last question for you, and it is advice. This platform is predominantly female. Mm-hmm. And so I'm wondering, what is some advice you would give to a female who is struggling with balancing their personal and their work life?
Yeah. For me, the most surprising thing, which I first learned when I broke my shoulders, and I then learned when I was willing to ask for help, is that people are waiting for you to ask for help. People are waiting for you to accept help. There were people around me all the time offering me help. And I was saying, no, I've got it. Because that's what we do. We have an automatic commitment to doing it ourselves and not needing help. And so that's my advice. Ask for help and accept help.
Yes. I think sometimes we need to hear that.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder. As far as, any closing thoughts, there's so much. We covered so much. This was so great. I so appreciate you taking some time. Do you have any closing thoughts before we close up here?
I think that there is so much opportunity to find joy. And I was always suspicious of joy. I was always suspicious of people who were happy because I thought there's just so much work to do and there's just so much stress in life. What are you so happy about? And now I know that, look, my life isn't perfect, right? I'm not here telling you the story of the princess throne I'm sitting on being fed grapes and fanned with a feather all day. I'm still working really hard. I'm still hustling. I'm building a business that was a side hustle. And everybody's got hard in their lives. Yeah. But my baseline now is joy.
Yes.
And it wasn't before.
Yeah.
And it's so much more fun.
Yeah.
And it's available to everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. What a great closing thought. That was off the cuff, girl.
Thank you.
I love that. Well, listen, Lauren, I so appreciate you being here and taking some time to sit with myself and our audience here at HerVersion. We really appreciate all of the wonderful goodies that you gave to us. And what a great story. Oh my gosh. So many. I don't know how to word that, but there was a lot of so that was great. I appreciate your storytelling ability. I appreciate all the goodness that you gave us. Thank you for the book recommendations. For those of you that are interested in getting to know Lauren and more about what she does, make sure you check out her website. And as she said, she's on LinkedIn under her name, Lauren Lefkowitz.
Yeah. Well done.
All right.
Thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure.
Yes, yes, yes. All right. So for those of you that are still watching live and for those of you that are watching on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay. We do go back and answer any comments, questions that you have. Lauren will be in and around the community for any of you that want to reach out. So thank you so much for hanging out with us. And thank you for joining us here on the platform. If you have an amazing story to share of struggle to triumph, be sure to reach out to me here or at HerVersion.life. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire others. Do something awesome today. Much love.